infinite that we must reach. ghost town.
Hi, and welcome to the CF1 Spin Showcase Series. We're going to start off with some informational panels, and then we'll head over to the college recruitment part of today's event. But we're so excited to have everyone here today. We're going to start off with our administrative run panel. I will be your host, Kieran Nenser, president of CF1, and we'll get to these other people just here in a second. Just for those of you who are following along on today's schedule, we'll be having our first administrative run panel today, right now. That will go till about 12:30 Eastern, 9:30 Pacific. And then we'll switch over and have our student-led panel from 12:30 to 1 or from 9:30 to 10. From there, we'll go right into the Spin event, and we will host the Spin Zone so that you guys can watch all the action from all your favorite players from around the event. But without further ado, let's start getting introductions from our esteemed panelists. So, Troy, why don't you start us off and give us a little intro about yourself and about your program?
My name is Troy Chifari. I've been working collegiate esports for about 3 years. Previous 4 years before that, I was doing League of Legends, pro, amateur, stuff like that. I created a club myself when I was in school, like 9 years ago now. It's really exciting work. I'm really happy to be able to build infrastructure for this.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Troy. Daniel?
Hi, my name is Daniel Choicer. I'm the acting UNF esports director. We've just recently started exploring the possibility of bringing a official varsity esports team to University of North Florida. But we started off with the pilot program, which we have competing with CF1 here in Valorant.
Thank you so much, Daniel. And Courtney?
Hi, everybody. So my name is Courtney Calder. I'm the Director of Esports at Wichita State University. I have been in this position for a little over a year now, and I've been really excited to watch it grow and kind of see where we're going to go.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. It's truly a pleasure to have each and every one of you on our panel today. So let's get into it. Obviously, we have 3 different programs and 3 different directors in various different stages of growth, but each of you bring a pretty unique perspective. So for the prospective students, and especially their worried parents that may be on this this show today watching, what can a student expect from joining a competitive esports organization at a college level? What are their time commitments like? What should they expect when they go to college as a freshman?
I can start off. So my program started off underneath athletics, so I tried to mimic it as much as possible because my boss, being an athletic director, was kind of expecting that of me. Yes, esports and gaming, you can play a little bit more than you can play like basketball or something like that due to fatigue. And then also you want to limit it due to academics. So you have to have a good balance between your social life, other academic activities that you're doing, extracurriculars. So my program's pretty relaxed with the time. We hover around 15 to 20 hours a week. Non-COVID, I only had like 1.5 years non-COVID before. And lands would eat up like a whole weekend sometimes. So maybe you'd miss out like a couple days of practice to make up for the studying you'd need to do, the homework you need to do, or excuse absences and remake tests and stuff like that. I would say the expectation you're looking for with a program, you shouldn't really let a program tell you what they do, because every student is going to have a different want from an esports program, whether casual, wanting to just make friends and build camaraderie, ultra competitive people that want to have like a STEM with collegiate being their stepping process to pro. Some programs can cater that, some can't. I think you should, as a player, ask the right questions, be really vulnerable and genuine. And if you can, like visit the school in person so you can get like that really interpersonal touch with the coach or director, see the facilities, all of that. Yeah, I kind of rambled, sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, I'll
Courtney.
jump in there. Okay. Yeah, so UNF, as we are starting up with our program, we are kind of mimicking off of athletics as well. But we are currently doing about a 15 to 20 hour program. Our academic program is pretty important in our athletics program. The current average GPA is a 3.6 in our athletics program. So we value academics pretty high. Our program is also being built more on not just the competitive side, but the how can we do experiential learning. So how does this fit in with your programming of school of communication if you want to do broadcasting or media or video development in our Spinnaker news agency. So there are a lot of different ways beyond just competing that we're going to try and get people into. And again, those all use different hours.
Yeah, so we're kind of a mix of both of those as well. Not to kind of be repetitive, but we also really value academics as well as applied learning, is what we call it. So we have students that come in that work specifically that don't actually play competitively at all. They work with our content and marketing. They might do some shoutcasting for us. They'll run our socials, and they all have their own individual goals that they're working towards. One thing that's super important to our program is that we have a lot of students that are from other areas on campus. So someone might be a health professional or a business major and really wants to get into shoutcasting, but doesn't necessarily have the correct tools. And so they aren't able to build their portfolio. So that's something that we focus on, is really giving that applied learning to our students and finding a way for them to grow individually and academically. But when it comes to our competitive space as well, all of our students are required to maintain their GPA. They also are required to go through toxicity training as well as health and wellness training. We are working on a mindfulness piece as well. The goal is to just give our students a holistic view at esports, because even though we are modeled after traditional sports, so they do have practice and VOD reviews and they do their tournaments and whatnot. Our goal isn't to necessarily make them professional athletes, it's to make them professional humans. And so how do we find that total package for them? And that's really what we focus on at Wichita.
Courtney, you make a great point there. Obviously, esports is so much more than just playing competitively and going to school. There are so many other different dynamics that go involved into the competitive scene and into the collegiate scene of esports and around the country. If you guys could you share some experiences about how much esports has grown over the last 5 years, and or your experience in it, and how your program has changed to meet those needs outside of just the competitive play side of things, but also meeting the needs of the students' social needs, mental health, wellness, whatever you guys are focusing in on campus.
So my first year, which was 2018, it was just like a building phase, seeing what esports could be. I didn't even look at any other program. There were some programs like Maryville, RMU, Harrisburg, Columbia that had something, some land rooms, and I like stole some ideas from them. Kind of like looked at their facilities, saw some of the pitfalls, like noise management and centers and stuff like that. I started off with 2 games because I was told I'd be absolutely crazy if I did more than 2. So I did do 2. That was a lot of work. It's pretty easy to manage teams, harder to coach specific teams. So the goal that I have is to build the program game by game, bring in a coach, just like an athletic program could, coach per game. So essentially, it really is like mimicking an athletic director, where it's like I'm the director, I have a coach for each of my games. And right now we're at 11 games. I'd probably do a bad job in naming off all of them. Could you repeat the question one more time? I just want to hit all the points. Sorry.
Yeah, if you could talk about Courtney mentioned the holistic approach, and obviously that's become such a larger part of our esports programs. What areas do you focus on at ONU outside of just playing in academics? Because there is that other component that we need to meet for our players and our students.
Yeah, just like the other programs out there, these students have like different degree backgrounds, finance, business, all of that. My school really wanted me to do a esports degree, an esports minor, and I said, they're going to get a lot better experience for their resume building if they just work the job, and I give them a student worker job for that. So I have a big setup for like assistants of mine that are doing somewhat coaching, somewhat managing, production assistants, commentating assistants, people writing content, doing content, pretty much anything they would want to do. I don't really create the job for my need. I create it for someone that would want to do the job, and then I just hire them, and they're building their resume. They're still going to get their degree, and I think that's a necessity for getting a lot of jobs in esports and any job in general where you want to get promoted. Uh, and it really is turning into, they're going to get just streamlined into the industry. You don't really need an esports-esque degree or an esports-esque minor. I would say there's not even professionals out there that can teach those. And if a university is, it's very rare if they're actually doing genuine work to that, right? Yeah.
Absolutely,
I'll say
absolutely.
this way, sorry.
We won't dive too deep into the esports degree category because I think we could probably do a whole panel on that one.
Yeah.
But Daniel, obviously, you're a new program. You guys have really only been around since COVID really hit, if I'm not mistaken. So how have you experienced the growth and meeting the needs for your players?
Yeah, the official program has really started with the COVID timeline, but I've been with the university since 2011, and we've had a active esports club that has pretty much grown organically. Really, it's grown across all different types of games, social and competitive, and really it was within this COVID timeline that when normal traditional sports kind of took a hit. Really, my director came to me and said, "Hey, what can we do about esports? Because it's something we can do during this time period, and it seems like a good opportunity to get into it." So we've looked at that. We've actually worked with our student clubs, worked with the leaders of the different various games and coaches, and that's how we kind of recruited our Valorant team. Was say, "Hey, let's do this as a pilot program. This is a fairly new game on the competitive market." And let's see how we can do. And we're using that, gathering information, kind of tweaking different things, and we're growing from there. And as Courtney and Troy have said, we really want to focus on the holistic approach as well. We have a very strong school of communication. We have a strong school of education that does sports management, and part of that we've talked to some of the professors there, some of the deans, and they've applied interest of, hey, how can we turn this into potential esports management? Same with our School of Nursing, School of College of Health is, the health and wellness of being a competitive player or being involved in these types of sports. So there's many different facets, no matter what you guys as students are interested in, to say, hey, I really want to focus on this as my career, but is there some facet of this I could take with me and join the esports program? And the answer to that is probably most likely yes. There's, as Troy said, there's many different ways we can find a place to get somebody experience for what they want to do into the program.
Thank you so much, Daniel. And Courtney, you brought this up. So obviously, holistic approach has been ingrained in the Wichita esports system since almost its founding. But how have you had to change that to meet your COVID needs, to work around the pandemic, to make sure that you were still fulfilling that side that the students were requesting and requiring from the esports program?
Absolutely. So this is where a lot of it has been. Our students have really stepped up, right? So my players, and briefly, like we're still working on, and part of our growth for fall of 21, we'll be adding coaches that won't be necessarily like a part of our institution, and so our team manager piece has been we've adapted that to be more like an assistant coach and a team manager, kind of like a liaison between our athletes and us in the I would say the faculty and staff role. But to answer the question is, our team managers have really been that pivotal piece. They've been the ones that have been talking to our students and keeping our students kind of just in the loop of everything that's been going on, working with me directly. Their physical workouts were not required at this time because 99% of my students aren't on campus. And so they don't have to do their workouts right now, but we do talk about it. We've been talking more on their academic piece. So having that conversation, really kind of showing, okay, how do we get through this? Because I think with COVID, we've noticed that it could be intense. It can be something that a lot of our students were not prepared for, to move all of their classes to online. For some students, that's just not how they work, and I totally understand that. And so we talk through that, and I think it's about having that open and honest conversation with our students. Although it's not an official, health and wellness way, but honesty and vulnerability is really huge for us. And so they're able to have that conversation with myself or with their team managers or whatnot to really kind of say, okay, this is where we are. How do we get to where we need to be? If that means we've got to add some tutoring, or if that means we just need to have a conversation that's fun and lighthearted, that really helps with the mental health piece as well. So I will tell you, in the spirit of honesty, we've not been as hard pressed on a lot of our ways because of COVID. Just with not having our students on campus, the goal isn't to send them home and to just have more stress. The goal is for them to be comfortable and confident and that they can work in their academic space and on their competitive space as well. But we will be putting everything back into place for the fall. So when they're on campus, we'll be having those actual, they'll have physical workouts weekly. They'll be doing different check-ins and check-outs and stuff like that. So.
Awesome. And that is a great segue. So I appreciate that, Courtney. Obviously we've seen tremendous growth from the collegiate esports scene from those of us that have been around now for a couple of years in it. It's amazing to see what college esports was back in 2016 as compared to 2021. As we start to look into our crystal balls and as we sort of, gaze out into the future, what do we expect to see from collegiate esports in the next 5 years? Obviously, with each of your programs being at a different stage, you each are taking a different evaluation, a different metric looking forward. But let's start off with you, Troy, being the most senior of this group right now and having the most experience. What do you see 5 years out? How do you see the esports scene changing at the collegiate level, and how will that impact individual campuses?
Yeah, so I'll honestly talk about what it's going to look like on mine. So mine, I have facilities of 4 rooms right now, 36 PCs, 2 LAN rooms. I can't put any more PCs in there because one of them's dedicated to tournament space, another one's practice space. Then I have a production room and then an office. The office is maxed out with coaches, myself and other assistant coaches. Expansion is probably going to hit a ceiling at some point. I think most campuses are going to hit that. So people that have facilities now, they probably have a certain growth threshold, which is what I had 3 years ago. And I hit that within 1 year. I think a lot of universities, including mine, didn't really know what the growth potential was. So going into the rest of the nation, I think right now it's probably 700 schools-ish that have esports, at a club level, maybe some facilities. Facilities-wise, maybe 300, I would guess. But I think 1 or 2 years after COVID, that number is going to hit 2,000, 3,000 very, very quickly. I mean, half the time I'm doing consultations for state schools and stuff like that. There's a lot of schools ready. So it's going to be very weird. I think there's going to be way more schools doing esports than there's going to be people in high school knowing that there's scholarship and schools out there. There's literally going to be people just beginning to play Valorant, for instance, and they're going to get a scholarship. No doubt about that. So it's just crazy to me that the growth from the structure level is going faster than the growth of the mindset of a high school player. So it's probably a high school player hearing me say this they're probably thinking the opposite. There's probably not as much, but maybe I have a geographical bias because Ohio has 170 high schools around me with it. We have 5 LAN centers to go to tournaments at, and there's probably 40 colleges with facilities similar to mine. It's crazy. I don't know.
Yeah, you bring up a lot of great points there. Obviously, we're starting to see an evolution in the high school space, especially with events like this and our partners over at Spin trying to build up the recruiting services. But there is going to be a monumental shift in what we talk about from a recruitment perspective, because while we know that there's players out there and we know there's players that are practicing real hard, the knowledge information gap that we're seeing from high school players not understanding that there's opportunities exist. I mean, I know when I founded my program at Canisius College, we were the first school in Buffalo to really start offering anything in that nature. And parents were I don't understand. And I think that's what, panels like this and the works that, all of you guys, everyone is doing in the space to bridge that information gap is so critical. So appreciate the take, Troy. Daniel, obviously, you're in the process of looking 5 years out right now as you do this pilot program and as you build the infrastructure. What do you see changing, especially in a state like Florida where, schools grow fast, schools grow big, and programs can pop up one day? Is esports going to be there in 5 years, and how big is it going to be?
Oh, I think esports is going to be pretty huge in Florida. Currently, we are one of the first public universities, so the state university system. We're one of the first ones trying to establish an official varsity program. Many of the big schools, FSU, UF, they have the club level and they compete on that one. And there's many private universities in Florida that have a full varsity program. Some beautiful ones as well. But we are looking at that and saying, yes, this is something that is not going to go away. This is, if you look at the trend year over year, the exponential growth of esports is just, it's crazy. You see it at the high school level, you see it at the collegiate level, and then you see it at the professional level. You have full professional football teams, owners and stuff looking at creating esports teams. This is not something you see in the past. You see esports being played on ESPN. You go to a restaurant and you see right there on League of Legends being played. So we are definitely seeing the exponential growth of esports within Florida. I can only see a matter of time before the big name schools jump on it as well. But we're trying to get ahead of it, trying to do it the right way. Just as Troy was talking about the look at the growth of the administrative side. How can we plan for that for 5 years out? I totally expect that we'll have a facility or at least a dedicated space, arena space. Within 5 years, we'll have a program. We're already planning on our second team starting up in the summer. So we're looking at Rocket League. We also have a very dedicated League of Legends team. So I could see probably by the fall when we come back to full-time campus, we'll be 2 to 3 teams, and then 5 years from now, I don't know if we'll go as many as Troy has with 11, but we'll, or what is it, 22 teams? I'm not sure, but
Yeah,
we're
I
gonna
can explain how I
kind
did
of
it.
we're gonna take it step by step. So, but I definitely see the growth is there, and we're gonna try and be a big part of it.
And that leaves you, Courtney. What do you expect to see as we move forward? Especially, we have 2 Midwestern schools here. Obviously, it was a little early to get a West Coast person on board. We've seen tremendous growth in the Midwest. It's been a focal point of collegiate esports now for any number of years. A lot of the premier programs started there. RMU, Maryville, Columbia College. The storied history in the Midwest. How do you see it growing in your area, and specifically on Wichita's campus 5 years out? Where are we going to be with esports?
Yeah, I mean it's something that I would say, like, I don't have that crystal ball, but I will tell you the energy within Wichita is pretty remarkable. Our Wichita Public Schools, so out here locally in the surrounding area, have really backed esports, and so what we're seeing is the development in the high school space, and it is extremely competitive. In fact, one of our schools they just won some national championship, and so we look at that and we say, okay, so Wichita as a city is absolutely backing esports. We're showing the growth and development for our high school students. It's also giving students an opportunity to start thinking about college in a different way. It's a place that our students can now say, you know what, college might be an opportunity for me. It's a space that I would feel comfortable in. I can grow and develop academically, personally, all that kind of stuff. So we, as an institution, so now talking about Wichita State, we partner with our high schools. One thing I will say that I would love to see change. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this when I say it. We don't have club sports, right? So like we look at how we recruit. I played soccer growing up. I played club soccer since I was like 6. And so I had the opportunity to get out in front of coaches and to get out in front of, universities and things like that, because that's what I did. And esports isn't in that same set. And so we have to look at how we recruit. How do we look at bringing students on board outside of just looking at a VOD review? And so that I think is something that I would love to see change. I'd love to see us being able to look at recruiting differently within the next 5 years. That's a personal thing. I don't know if it's going to happen, but outside of that, really just partnering with our local surroundings and our cities, really just to back esports, because at the end of the day, nobody owns esports. We can model as much as we want after traditional sports, which I think gives us a beautiful structure of how to really organize everything. But where it goes from here, I think is just, there's just no ceiling. It's so powerful. It's so impactful. And honestly, anybody can really do it in some capacity. So whether that's a varsity program or a club space, we're finding homes for students to really kind of to bloom and blossom, I should say, as individuals, and really be impactful within the space and within their careers.
Thank you, Courtney. We have just a few minutes left, and we're done with our preset questions. So it's time to add a little spice here to this panel discussion. We looked forward, we've talked about the growth, the holistic thing. Obviously, from a player's perspective, one thing that has become increasingly more important in the recruiting space, in the looking out of in the future, is scholarships. We have players right now that are going to be playing later on today that know that they are going to be actively recruited and more likely going to be receiving a scholarship. So each of one of your programs, how do you see scholarships developing and competing when you're maybe at a school that may not offer athletic scholarships, but now maybe offering esports scholarships instead? How does that internal conversation take place, and how do we see it growing? Because according to NACE and a couple others, there may be somewhere as much as $16 million allocated in collegiate esports scholarships this year alone. So if we're looking out and looking into the future, that number is going to go up exponentially, as we've seen from the last 5 years, and more schools are going to start offering larger and larger scholarships. So how do you feel about scholarships now? Where do you see them going? And what's the best way to actually earn one, to be recruited, from your personal perspectives?
So if you're a competitive player that could be earning a full ride scholarship, it should be pretty easy for you to do some research and see what schools can offer that. And then it'll be hard for you to see the other schools that might not offer it. So like mine would never get to a full ride because we're a high-end academic school. You need around like a 3.2 to get in here easily with a good academic scholarship. But we do offer like the baseline. Most schools do around like 2,000 a year. I think almost every school I know of that's doing esports, they're doing 2,000 a year. And if they don't have that, it's going to be hard for them to recruit because so many other schools are doing that. A lot of schools like my own, there's case-by-case basis where you're a top 500 player, Radiant, whatever, you should be able to get more. And probably not the best place to say this, but I'm really transparent with students. If you get financial aid packages from schools, you can show other schools that financial aid package, and it's pretty much the same as buying a car. You can kind of like price adjust and see if another school will adjust their scholarship for your own. And students should honestly do that. It's kind of like an unspoken thing between people that do my job, and I'm sure your guys' too. But I really like helping the player get the best opportunity they're able to get, whether it be my school, some other school, I don't care. But you should get that financial aid package. Don't let a school say you have to commit to get it, because that's not true. Get that financial aid package and pick the best school for you. Ask those questions, like I said at the beginning of this. Really understand what you want from the school: big town, big city, small town, small school, whatever you want, and then just go from there, from esports and on.
Well, breaking an unspoken rule by speaking it, let's hope it's no repercussions there. How about from our remaining two panelists? Any thoughts or conversations that you guys are having around scholarships, and where do you see that growing and going?
At the UNF, since we are still working at the start of the program, we haven't really discussed scholarships as far as the administrative level, but it's understood that it's going to be a part of the program. I think, like Troy was saying, it's probably going to be around the 2,000 level to start, until we can kind of get some foothold into the program and kind of get some sponsorships or some other sorts of ways of generating revenue. And it really is a numbers thing. And the COVID really hit to our all universities' budgets. So trying to talk anything money with the vice presidents and the president is kind of tough right now. They luckily we were able to kind of get this program going without very much budget at all. So that's where we're starting in. But I think they understand that if this is going to be a real thing, that there is going to be some money needed into it. And just as Troy was talking about the unspoken rule, I mean, we're educators first. Our goal is to get these students from high school into college to get the best possible education they can get to go into the world as productive adults. Whether that means coming to our university because we have a scholarship or shopping around. We ultimately want what's best for the student. So it's, yeah, do your homework, shop around. If you have the skill set, you can find places. So.
To your homework, always good advice. And that leaves Courtney. You have the last word on scholarships for the day.
Cool. Yeah, so we're absolutely kind of right in between the two of them. We're not 100% where we need to be as far as the scholarship goes, but that's because we're really big at working on our infrastructure. There's no way for our teams to be competitive if we can't provide them the opportunities to play successfully. So right now, part of our growth plan, we are in the space of growing our competitive facilities, making sure that our internet is up to speed, that our computers are up to date, all that kind of stuff. And really giving our students that strong infrastructure. And then from there, we'll be able to put in place scholarships at that point. We do have a strong academic background as well. That's where we really look at our scholarship piece. There are a lot of opportunities out there and a lot of scholarships to be given. There's also a lot of in-state tuition waivers that happen at most universities. So once again, if it's not Wichita State, there are other universities out there that will offer different types of financial aid packages that are outside of academics. So I would say absolutely. And kind of like what Troy said, it doesn't have to necessarily be our institution. I just want our students to kind of, take a look around, look at other institutions, look at other universities, what's right for them. Just because we might have a phenomenal, team X, it doesn't mean that it's going to be the best path for that student. And so we want our students to grow, once again, holistically. And so hopefully scholarships will eventually be a part of that. But today I would say absolutely look at other institutions, make sure it's the right journey for you, because it's going to be an awesome 4 years. And I want to make sure it's the right fit for them.
All right. Thank you so much, panelists. Please, for all those watching at home, please check out Ohio Northern University, the University of North Florida, and Wichita State University. They all have tremendous programs, and I'm a little biased. They have great Valorant teams as well. So please check them out. Their information is readily available and has been provided in the Discord server. I want to thank you again for coming on board and doing this panel with us, and we'll be right back with our student panel next.
looking down from the heights that we have built all by ourselves. And there is fear of the unknown, but we cannot lose control.
Welcome back, everyone, to the CF1 Spin Showcase. We are here today for our second panel. Those of us who are involved in esports know it's so much more than just competitive play and administrators. We have students as well. So to give that perspective, we have two great panelists for you today, and we'll get to those intros in just a second. For those of you that are following along on today's schedule, this is our second and last panel of the day. Following it, we will be hosting over the Spin Zone, where you can check out the best Valorant players from around the high school and transfer scene. So for those of you that are looking for that play, we're just a few short minutes away, and we'll get there shortly. But before we do that, I want to introduce our two panelists. So first off, give us a little background about yourselves and talk about what your role is and your position is on campus. We'll start with you, Seth, first. Oh, Seth, we're going to need you to unmute your mic.
There we go. All right. Yeah, so I'm Seth. I'm currently the acting president of Rutgers Esports.
Thank you so much, Seth. And Susan.
I'm the esports or Valorant esports manager at the University of Waterloo, and I manage all the Valorant teams there. And before that, I was the manager for the League of Legends team at our school.
Well, let me just tell you guys, these are two great panelists because they come from two great premier esports institutions, Rutgers University and the University of Waterloo, to our friends up in the north. And let me tell you, they have quite good Valorant teams. In fact, Rutgers is currently sitting in standings 8-0 in the East, and I believe Waterloo only has one loss to their name as we speak as well. So two teams are doing terrific in CF1 esports, and we're really excited to have them here today. So we're really speaking to prospective students and their parents right now, and that's the focus of today's panel. And so much of what we hear about in the collegiate sports scene is, there's administrators and then there's competitive players. But for those of us who have been in the scene, have been a part of it, know that there is a massive middle ground for people that are not really that competitive per se, but want to be involved and want to help shape the esports narrative on campus. So let's talk about what other positions there really are and what they do and how they interact with those competitive teams. Because from where we're standing, both of you have those positions and are killing it, by the way, and are vital to the growth and continuing expectations of college esports. So we'll start off with Seth first. Talk a little bit about the other roles outside of being just a competitive player on campus.
Yeah, of course. I mean, Rutgers Esports has a very big community presence, and it takes a lot of effort from multiple different people, with different skills that can feed those, make these events happen that feed to our community and just make our name bigger and just bring the esports the recognition that it deserves. So we have, a competitive side, tournament organizers, coaches, but other than that, we have event planners. We have people who reach out to companies to sponsor us. We have graphic designers that make our fantastic overlays and flyers to advertising, a social media team dedicated to just keeping our brand alive, and overall just various leadership positions that people can hone in and just exercise just multiple different facets of their of their college career and ultimately getting into a regular career. And through the variety of roles that we have available, all of these are very transferable to whatever career that many students decide to go in, whether it be esports or otherwise.
Yeah, and Susan, why don't you speak to that as well? What positions exist at Waterloo currently outside of the competitive space, and what is their role really in making sure that the competitive players do the best that they can or in the best possible position to do what they need to?
It's kind of just like what Seth said. For the competitive things outside, there's a lot of behind the scenes that go on. So from the administrative side, of course, there's people like me who manage all the teams and organize their schedules and all that. There's also the coaches who obviously help the team out with their strategies and like their overall, I guess, teamwork. Also, like beyond the competitive scope, there's event planners like Seth said. And for us, like we have we have a marketing team that are specifically for the teams, and we have people that help engage like our school community and casual players in like the esports club with the competitive side of things. So I guess our community is also pretty connected with the competitive teams at our schools. And on top of that, like we have our own streams. We have our own esports streams, and school assigns like I guess shoutcasters for our own streams. And similar to what Seth said, there's a lot of graphic designers for our nice overlays and all that. So holistically, the esports scene at our school, personally, it's a lot more than just I guess being competitive player as well. Yeah.
Awesome. I feel that social media managers didn't get enough love in either one of your comments, so I'll give them the shout out. Let's not forget our poor people that have to check the Discord every day and make sure that they're posting and everything of that nature, because as someone who has to do it for CF1 personally, I can tell you it's not the funnest aspect of my job. I like this much more. So let's really talk about, obviously parents care about two things. They care about their kids getting a degree, and they care about what they're going to do with that degree. I'm sure I'm talking to two people that understand that pressure well and true already. I don't need to reinforce that anymore. But you guys have now seen your peers and other people in the scene that weren't competitive players get outlets into their jobs that they wanted, whether it was in esports, whether it was technology or esports adjacent, or just something completely opposite. What skill sets do you learn being a part of the non-competitive side that are transferable into the job market and provide you guys opportunities for the jobs that you want? And we'll start off with Susan on this one. Give us a little background of what you've seen and what are you looking forward to when it's your turn to graduate and take your skills to the marketplace.
I believe this really refined for me personally two main things. One being communication, and the other being organization. So for communication, like because we have to keep in contact with not only our own team players but also other schools, it really helps build public relation, for example. And clear communication is really emphasized and very important in this aspect. And as for organization, of course, since I'm organizing all the team schedules and everyone, like I have to work around every player's schedules and keep those in mind, a lot of organization is involved. And I'm really happy I took this role because overall it refines skills, these two very important skills that I think are very transferable in many aspects of life. And like for me personally, because I want to be a lawyer after I graduate, or I want to do law school after I graduate, like these two skills will really help me, like really gives me an edge in that aspect. And they're very, I guess, personally applicable.
Well, that was a fantastic answer, and please do not undersell the organizational capacity that is required to do the job that Susan does.
Right.
We can tell you from our personal Discord, she is in there every day making sure that we're active, scrims are being scheduled, and that we as a league organization are also relying on her to do her job to her utmost capacity. So we appreciate all your efforts here at CF1 as well, Susan, and keep up the good work. Seth, that leaves us to you. Obviously, Susan took two great ones, communication and organization. What else do you got for us? What other skills have you learned being the president of Rutgers Esports?
Yeah, I mean, well, that leaves me with that she took the two best answers there. But the leadership is definitely a big thing that I've gotten as being president of Rutgers Esports, because there's a lot of moving pieces that I have sorry, I can't speak, that I have to keep account of and make sure everything is flowing smoothly and everyone is working together and making the vision come alive for whatever we need to do, whether that be for our events, our tournaments, or just our outreach in general. The leadership I've learned how I work in a team, how I work leading other people, how I work in just in this sort of working environment. And I've learned a lot of things about myself and how other people really work in this sort of in this sort of space that I felt was invaluable and I wouldn't have gotten anywhere else. So definitely, just having the leadership experience and teamwork and doing all this sort of things, it's definitely prepared me for the career that I'm trying to go to. And I'm personally trying to go into the technology space, specifically security and cybersecurity. So definitely working in something where where the nature of the job is highly sensitive, those skills are absolutely paramount in that situation.
That was a great answer, Seth. So don't cut yourself short. You definitely were able to make it work. You know, going off what both of you have said, and we'll start off with you specifically, Seth, on this one, because Rutgers has a storied history. You guys have people in esports positions high up across the country, whether it's working with publishers or whether it's working with Andbox in New York City. You have had a pretty long lineage of people going into esports. But what we just heard from both of you was, hey, listen, I love esports. It's what I'm doing here, but I have other career goals. How can you see and talk to your perspective from, because you're managing such a large swath of students, how many students are actually looking to do something in esports that you see, trying to follow those footsteps, and how many of them are like yourself, like, hey, listen, I'm thinking more going private sector or working for a corporation, something along those lines. Speak to that if you could, Seth.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen both sides of the coin here. A lot of students are definitely interested in esports, and a lot of students are also interested in pursuing other career aspects that aren't related to esports specifically. That isn't to say that they aren't interested in the industry at all. It's just that maybe they feel that their skills are better suited elsewhere, or their passions, don't necessarily align with one or the other. But there's still, a lot of students are still in the esports space. They still enjoy what they do. They still are trying to make esports a bigger community and a bigger name than what it, like just continuously growing it from what it is. And though I'm not personally going into strictly esports post graduation, I do plan to hopefully still be a part of the community in some way as an alumni, helping out the org after I leave, and just being a part of the community as soon as as someone with industry experience elsewhere, and bringing that back, and hopefully that can help strengthen the industry or just the scene overall.
Absolutely, Seth. I can see the Santos Rutgers Esports Arena maybe one day. Hopefully, well, get those naming rights up. Get those naming rights. All right, and
I'll
Susan,
sign it right now.
And Susan, you're obviously managing a bunch of different players on your teams. From your experience, are they all looking to go into esports, or is it more of a mixed bag, similar to what Seth was saying?
Seth's pretty spot on in that aspect. We do have people who are actually looking to go into esports. I know, like, for example, our Overwatch manager also manages another semi-professional team outside of her time, as well as managing our collegiate Overwatch. One of the Valorant players specifically on my team, he applied for Riot for software dev, so I guess it's kind of far off from having an actual direct esports job, but I think, like, I would like to say that, like, esports probably changed a lot aspects of every single one of our lives, just in one way or another, like for some more than others.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And thank you for that segue, Susan, into our last question before we come up with some more spicy ones at the end of this. We've talked about what you guys are doing career-wise, the opportunities that exist at your school, how it's more than just being competitive. From your perspectives, how has esports directly impacted either what you wanted to do, your confidence, personality? What impact has working in collegiate esports made for yourself, Susan, if you care to speak to that?
For me personally, esports for me was a big part growing up. I think it really shaped a majority of my personality even. And in that sense, like, I think, especially when managing the league team prior and managing the Valorant team now, I've become more outspoken as a person. And for me, like, piggybacking what I said previously, like, communication wise, that was never really my strong suit, but I'd like to say that because of the managing I did for the team and communicating, like, with the team members and other managers from other schools, it's really helped me a lot in one of my, I would say, weakest aspects of my skill sets.
Do you plan on using any of your esports love or knowledge when you go into your law career? Are you going to work any adjacent field, or are you going to be what sort of lawyer are you looking to be?
that's kind of iffy. For me personally, I want to do contract law, and a small part of that was sparked by, I guess, some stories of unfair treatment towards players, or players getting like manipulated into certain kinds of contract, and that sparked a little bit of my interest in going into contract law. So I'm not too sure if that answers your question, but
No, I think it answers it perfectly. I could see maybe your name at the bottom of some esports players' contracts in the future. Who knows? It's a crazy, crazy
that would
world,
be
but
cool.
I love the answer and appreciate it. All right, Seth, that leaves you. How has esports impacted your life? Uh, Give us a little background on what it meant to be a part of Rutgers Esports.
Yeah, I mean, like Susan, esports has been a big part of my life for a very long time, ever since I was young. I started out with when MLG was a thing with Halo, actually. So I was along, competing in that when I was a teenager back in high school. I didn't win, of course, but it definitely helped. It definitely helped where I am today and getting into the esports scene as a whole. It's built a lot of confidence in me because I was the nerd. I didn't play a lot of sports. I wasn't very physically fit, but esports was an outlet for me to you know to be competitive in a similar way that regular athletes were, that in a way that I didn't have to have the physical standards um, that is so demanding for traditional sports. So I was able to express and be able to feed that competitive need desire that I had through esports. And now, the collegiate esports scene at Rutgers, that was the first place where I felt like I actually truly belonged within a group of people. And there, I wanted to give back, so I wanted to be more part of the industry and help grow the community as a whole and give others the experience that I had coming in.
That's fantastic, and that's really great because I think one thing we didn't talk too much about today, but is apparent from the way you guys both speak and the way I've heard from so many others. A lot of friendships and a lot of relationships are born from esports. Connections that you made on campus right now, whether it's managing, working with, or any other of the positions and relationships that you guys have, they last a long time. College esports is hard. College esports is a grind, and being in there together forms long-lasting relationships that span the test of time. So last question I think for us today, since we have a little bit of extra time, and I want to get your opinion on it. We have a fairly diverse group of students watching and that will be watching. So much of what we hear from the college esports side is you have to be good. You have to be diamond, you have to be immortal, you have to be radiant, you have to be grandmaster, grand champ. Everyone puts on a great adjective to describe what you need to be to be a part of college esports. But for the vast majority of people that aren't those ranks, but still really want to be a part of college esports in either a substantial way, a minor way, what would you say to someone that goes, "Hey, listen, I'm not good at esports, but I love it, but I want to be a part of it"? What words of encouragement? What would you say to that person? What advice would you give them, looking back on your experience from working in college esports?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, we get that all the time. We always get people who are interested in wanting to join Rutgers esports, but they're so focused, saying, "Oh, it's esports; it must be competitive. I have to be good. I have to be." And I've written endless emails saying like, "Hey, this isn't competitive at all. You don't have to be good. If you want to join the team, that's perfectly acceptable. You just talk to the coaches." But we're a very casual, very very community oriented group of people, and we just want to see the community grow. We just want people to come and hang out and just meet new people, enjoy the community, and that's what it is. It's not about being the best there is. It's not about winning all the tournaments, all the prizes, and being rank one on the leaderboards, high KD, and all that stuff. But it's more about the people and who you meet, the things you learn, about the game, about each other, yourselves, and I'm willing to say that you know the game the game I wouldn't say the game comes first, and the game isn't the first thing that should come to mind. It's about the community. That's what comes first. It's who you meet, and you don't need to be platinum, you don't need to be diamond in order to get to be a part of that.
Awesome. Thanks, Seth. And Susan, what are your thoughts on that?
Like I feel like it's very easy for people to forget the behind the scenes that happen to make the competitive teams happen. So like if people are interested, like we talked about, there's always other different roles. Like you said, the social media role is very important, although like often overlooked, but like yeah, for branding, like social media is very important. There's our marketing teams. Like there's a lot of other roles that people can partake in outside of esports that can make them a part of the community that Seth talked about.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That wraps it up a little bit for the questions. Are there any shout outs you want to give people watching, people looking at home, teammates, group mates, whatever have you? This is your opportunity to shout out whoever you want. We'll start with Susan first.
Well, obviously, I would like to shout out my Valorant teams, both the A team and the B team. Managing can be very hard, and I've heard very, very bad horror stories about it, but my teammates honestly make it so easy for me. Great group of people.
All right. Thank you, Susan. All right, Seth, shout outs.
I obviously want to shout out our Valorant team as well. They've been doing fantastic, undefeated currently, and they're just really tearing it through the competitions. But I also want to shout out Scotty in chat, Rutgers Esports alumni. Good to see you here. Thank you. So yeah, hello, Scotty.
All right, that wraps it up. All right, for those of you that once again are looking to see what comes next, we have now wrapped up the panel portion of this show. The VODs will be available on our Twitch channel, but they will also be available on CF1 Esports YouTube page, and they'll be uploaded later on this evening. For those of you that are looking for the Spin Showcase that is coming up next, we're going to take a little bit of a break while they get things running, and then we will auto-host the Spin Zone, which is the Red Zone style format that will showcase all the matches throughout the course of the day. I want to thank our panelists once again, Seth and Susan. You guys were fantastic. It was a pleasure to have you here, and look forward to the split 2 of our competition and hopefully seeing you both in playoffs.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Looking down from the heights that we have built all by ourselves. And there is fear of the unknown, but we cannot lose control when we feel like the world is against us. We're trying to find ourselves without the defining words. We can no longer hold on to what only makes us hurt. We cannot sink into the dark, the vertigo is getting that it's hard not to